So
Want to give me a
last
recap?
time, yeah, I can do a recap. So basically, we found the shipment offices, rummaged around, saw nothing hugely of note, but we heard noises still happening in the staging area. So we went to investigate. Saw a high-ranking official, basically muzzing around, but looks to be flustered. And we saw a stack of papers that we believed came from the shipment office that could give us more information on the place. So we originally tried to sneak in there and grab it, but that didn't work well. So we ended up having to fight the guy, beat his ass, and destroy the entire place.
Okay.
Made a lot of holes. And almost getting possessed by a necklace that is now in the possession of Gria. And saw the papers, went through them, basically all the experimental areas. Saw that Princess is most likely here. Nothing on the L-Cats though. And made a copy of them for the Firefall crew, and then went to the central connector. Find secret passages.
All right. We'll probably end up picking up that's most of it. Although, you do remember what was in the documentation, or do you want a little like overview?
I mean, you gave me the copy of it. I mean, I mostly just the key thing was that Eliana was mentioned along with like the experiments they're being working on. Let's see.
Well, in particular, it seems that the experimentation has gotten a much bigger sort of, I guess, progression spike when the section came to the mentioning of Eliana and magic casters, seemingly that she is being used as the subject in particular, and no mention of her, of anyone coming after her so far in this experimentation. A lot of the things that are being referred to seem to be referring to this emissary bypass. It seems that she could be involved with it somehow or another.
Also, you mentioned that one other name on the list we saw was an Arcana.
One more time?
Didn't you mention that there's another name of opponents on there is Narcana? I know I asked, you mentioned, I asked if there's any other names if we can recognize, and you said that or something of that familiarity.
I will.
Okay.
I restarted it, but we'll come back to that at some other point if need be. But the thing that relevant was Eliana's name, being the very last on the list. That was on the document. But this was mentioned to be somewhere in the connection floor, but the map layout doesn't actually show anything in particular in the connection floor. So far, you've taken a peek from staging into the upper connector, but we haven't proceeded from there, and that's what we'll continue.
Yep. All right.
All right. We'll keep you on the map for now, and just tell me where it is that you want to be headed, and then I'll move you there. For now, we're starting yourself off in the staging room, still with most of the craters and other stuff, but you guys are kind of peeking your heads into the upper connector now.
Was there anything of note in the shipment bay?
The shipment bay is wide open. You can definitely go in.
Take a quick peek in there to see if there's anything of interest.
All right. One moment.
For a
And
second,
now
I
it's
thought it was. Sorry. For a second, I thought it was you used the factory map from Tarkov. I'm like, pain.
no, no, thank you. That was Green, Corbin, and Corin. Upon recovering after their rather intense battle in the battered room just next door, they make their way into the shipment bay, whose was apparently settled with dust, is now entirely disturbed, as the room is floating around with all sorts of nasty particles in the air. Just stepping into the room, Corbin can feel a heavy wave of it hit him, and almost induce some coughing in him as he bats some of it away. But either way, in this room, it seems that a majority of it is quite old and untouched. Nothing seems to catch his eye in particular, mostly old crates and worn-out labelings. But on the far end, he does see something odd, almost like a trick of the light. Can't seem to quite make out what it is without getting closer.
Corin, do you sense anyone in this room?
Nothing, he says. Been monitoring and I've got nothing.
Alright. It looks like there's something up ahead. I'm gonna check it out. Step forward.
As Corbin begins making his way across some of the walkways, he sees across from him now what he thought was the trick of the light, but rather a sort of flickering swirling of 4 different what appeared to be almost like screens of light. They distorted and sort of produce an image of something else, somewhere else. They do have labelings that come with them.
What are the labelings? Oh, sorry.
4 of them are listed here. 2 of them appear to be partially destroyed, or rather distorted, and does not produce any particularly easy to discern image. While there are also some empty spots at the end, seemingly implying that there was once more than just 4. But of the 4 that he can see here, ones that are still active, as far as he can tell, is with the labeling Pyramidian Imperial Monolith Private Chamber. And through the little portal, he can see something that he would expect to be related to Pyramidian, some sort of refined sandstone wall interiors in this distorted image. He can't make out much more than just a few feet in front.
Gria, do you know what this is?
Seems pretty obvious to me. Looks like a portal.
I was thinking the same thing.
Explains how they're getting around, though, she says, as she's pointing to some of the other labels. One of the destroyed ones next. The Underkeep Atrium Laboratory.
Stormfrost.
Stormfrost, yes. The other lit one, in this case, is the Real Arctic Spire.
Alright. So Rio Canal.
And the last one, seemingly destroyed, is Firefall, Sons of the Black Sun.
So the only 2 ones that look to be functioning is the one leading to Pyramidian and the other one leading to the Rio Canal.
That's correct.
Maybe we can use this to help Myth, and then once we figure out what the hell's happening here, or Natalia and them. Yeah. What's the 2 broken ones? 2 broken ones are going to Firefall and
Real.
Sorry,
wait, Firefall. Sorry, no. Sorry. It's not. That's not the broken. Firefall and the Underkeep Atrium.
Okay, so but the other ones are missing.
other than these four, it seems that there was a place for more than just four, but whatever they were no longer there, and the labels are also gone.
There's no like indents to give a hint of like what the previous labels could have been.
Nothing. It seems, if anything, the label sign itself was actually removed.
Okay. So this is probably where they ship to and fro between all the facilities. So this is possibly the main hub, or does each? I don't remember seeing something like this at the atrium.
No, actually, that's not true. There was something. Corin? Yeah, Corin's speaking to you. Mira's trying to keep it on as low-key as possible. She had something she held in her hand every time she looked around. You can tell by the look on her face that she was seeing something or wasn't seeing something. She's holding something like a small coin in her hand. And she was definitely looking around, and as far as I can tell, it looks like she was staring at a wall. I can't seem to make much out of it. My guess is that it's probably one of the teleportation points. It would make sense if that was where it led to, since it's kind of collapsed now.
Well, Gria, based on your knowledge of teleportation gates, do you think it's big enough for us to go through?
All of them are big enough. These are kind of looks like the expandable type. Says, kind of getting a little closer and examining them. What you need to do for these is you need to actually have a little bit of an input of magic, whether it be some condensed form or just input by the person itself, and it can expand the size. I'm guessing they probably have some kind of source magic in one of these crates somewhere they could use to ship stuff. I feel like that's not really much of a concern at the moment, but...
No, but at least it gives us a good way to get out of here if need be.
Worst case. Yeah. We should definitely remember this.
Alright.
Says,
let's go ahead and go do the upper connection then.
You see that as Corbin is turning away now, and Gria is turning away too, you see that she looks over her shoulder, and Corbin notices this for a second. You see that Corin is almost staring at Gria for a moment before walking down the walkway with you guys.
So wait, so Gria basically turned back to look back, and Corin notices
Look back at Corin, yeah, and Corin is looking at Gria very intently. You make no mention after that. You continue on. It seemed pretty obvious. It felt a little bit tense for a moment, which is why Corbin was able to kind of discern this little detail.
I mean, I understand that. I'm just trying to figure out why.
Either way, they proceed down, back out of the shipping bay, and back into some of the shipping rooms here. You headed to the upper connector?
Yep.
Okay. As Corbin now makes his way into the upper connector, he can see now there's a lot more natural light filtering in, although it doesn't feel entirely natural. As he looks out some of the windows now that he is surprised to see, he actually notices that the light filtering in is almost distorted and colored by what looks to be, he could swear to be the ocean outside. A dim sort of greenish blue light filtering in from the thin windows, reflecting off of the ground, giving a sort of ominous coloration to the hallway. Not just this, but also he could see little bits of dirt and seaweed and all the other sorts of undersea vegetation and life swirling around outside. Well, as you continue down the hall, they make a simple turn, and at the very end, it doesn't seem to connect to anything else but a single doorway at the far end. And the door is already open, looks like, and some stairs leading downwards. Can't seem to tell from where he is what's down there, but you can take a guess from the map. proceeding through the doorway now. He comes over to the railing before the steps, and he looks over to see almost like a foggy depth beneath him as it descends farther than he can even see down before it is obscured by this fog.
Do you think that's a disconnecting fog? One that basically severs our connections.
Corbin doesn't get this feeling. He feels as though it's just from the sheer depth of the place.
Humidity and condensation thing. Alright. Corin, do you sense anything farther down?
I wish I could sense that far down, she says, looking down as well. Giving me a little bit of shivers looking down this far. I hate looking down and not being able to see. Makes me wonder how it is that I managed to even live by the ocean. He says now, walking down some of the steps. I can't sense anything alive though.
Well, that's small comfort, but I don't know how much we should go off that, considering how many experiments were probably performed here.
Looks like one hell of a maze though. You see that as you continue down the stairs, this winding path of what looks to be uneven, or not rather uneven, but unequal floors, as each of them have a small sets of stairs or long sets of stairs leading to different sorts of different floors all along this connection floor, all which are leading to small side rooms with glass bordering each of them to be able to look in, and that most of the rooms are actually quite empty and dark. And continuing down some more, hearing only the echoes of their footsteps. A long time passes before finally they feel as though they actually reach the bottom. They look over the edge now and see just the bottom of the floor, and look up to see the same fog. Well, it's somewhere in between here, she says, looking up now. As Corbin does the same to see no ceiling, and of course that same fog. But however, almost all of it felt uniform, yet unique. Almost like it was made to be confusing.
Basically play tricks of their mind. Alright. So goes up to the door, opens, before entering, does he feel any disturbance or anything inside? Sense anything?
Sorry, this is the central connector. Sorry, what about the disturbance? Sorry.
Does he sense anything inside?
On
Elder's
the
blood should
bottom
be
floor?
technically
On the bottom floor?
Oh, we're on the bottom floor?
Yeah, you guys are pretty much on the bottom floor now. You guys have reached the bottom floor, surprisingly.
So we missed the connection somewhere.
Either way, there was numerous, perhaps even hundreds of rooms all the way leading up. It's like finding a needle in a haystack.
My best bet's trying to find.
You see that as Corbin is sitting there thinking, you can see that Corin is once again staring at Gria. You look like you know something, she says now, pressing Gria. I don't know what you mean by that, says, looking back.
You have something to say?
Not really. Just annoying, these whole magical contraptions. If only they could just make normal hallways.
Well, they wanted to be confusing for the enemies if they ever entered a place, and saying when they're enemies. I looked at the map again, just trying to see. Is it give an indicator of how many floors there are?
The map doesn't seem to give any indication in particular of how many floors there are. It just shows that it's very long.
Alright, so if we're on the lower entry chamber right now.
Yeah, you're just about here.
Yeah. Yeah. We can probably try to go into the memory collection facility and see what's stored there. That might be especially since Eliana's memories might be in there. Or if actually, let me just go through that page again. The notes about what was performed.
Yeah, of course. Listen, as eager as I am, Gria says, looking at the map with Corbin, as eager as I am to go poking around the facility, whatever was going on this lower floor, well, drew a lot of attention. Right now we've got eyes away from us. Don't you think maybe we should use that to our advantage?
So I go back up and try to find the correct connector.
It's probably the better idea. Now we just gotta figure out the pattern first and how it is that we're gonna find it. They had to have left something for us to see. Something for someone to see. The most important part about this whole thing was that on the blueprints for the layout, this was mostly for the eyes of the people who are actually going to be using this place, right? So why would they try to hide something on the connection floor unless they were trying to hide it from everybody? See what I'm saying?
Yep.
There has to be something.
I mean, how much is obvious that the fact they didn't mention it on central connectors. So basically, were there any patterns on the doors as we walked down?
Corin's pointing out now. There's pretty much all identical, and I tried to take a peek into each of the dark rooms as we passed by them. There was one room that sounded a little off. Almost like a light whistling. I'm guessing that might have something to do with it. It probably is worth checking out. I just wanted to see if Gria was going to say something first. You see that they're kind of at odds for a moment here.
I noticed this and basically said, well, we're all in this together, so let's figure out, is there information that that all of us have that would keep you from each other? I feel like both of you know me as well as anyone else.
I haven't kept...
Other than Eliana.
Corin turns to Corbin and looks him dead in the eyes. I haven't kept anything from you.
I believe that.
And I don't plan to. We're all built on trust here. And that's how I'd like it to stay, she says now, looking back at Gria. You know something, and I'm done being subtle about it. You look at this place like you recognize it. This isn't the first time you've been here, is it? You see that Gria looks down for a moment. I have some things that I do want to tell you. Both of you. Corbin, especially you.
Yeah.
But I
now
can't.
Not the time.
I can't yet.
I trust you, Gria. You've done a lot for me.
See that Corin's looking at her, almost trying to strain herself, almost looking for something, looking for any little piece to turn on her.
I turn to Corin and it's like, Corin, I understand. You're frustrated.
No, I get it. The problem is when she's saying that she isn't lying. She's been holding something back, and whatever it is, if it's important.
I feel that Gria would do the right thing.
You see, as he turns back to Gria, you see that she actually has a very sort of surprised look on her face, but a little bit of relief at the same time, almost like a weight was lifted off of her shoulders. And she turns around, almost trying to hide her face. Let's head back up and try to find this place. I'll tell you everything when the time comes. Soon. I promise.
I'll hold you to it.
And now they proceed up the stairs as Corin points out the room. It doesn't seem any distinctively different than anything else. Just in here, I can hear the whistling, really, really faintly. As they proceed through this sort of glass doorway here. In this glass doorway, they walk into
What does, if I may ask, What does the whistling sound like? Is there like any tune to it?
With Corbin listening in on his own now, trying his best to concentrate as the others silence themselves, he can hear a very, very faint whistling, almost like a high-pitched squeal rather than anything. Sense it
Is
too,
it like
Gray
is it
says.
constant, or is it like going up and down, like quieting and then starting up again?
It seems to be just constant.
Constant.
You ever turn on
Right.
like a TV or something, you hear like a sort of
Yeah.
like ring, yeah, the
The
really high pitch,
bzzz. Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
really high pitch, hard to hear kind of thing. Yeah, it's like similar to that.
Yeah. Okay.
And so following the wall, you see that Gria is saying something. I can sense it. It's right behind this wall. He says, counting now, like placing her hands along it and sort of scratching a little bit of paint off with some of the sharper claws she has on. You see she pulls it back, almost a little bit embarrassed by this. Well, we're not exactly the subtle type. I mean, she is, but
No.
it's just a thin wall. Bet you we could break it down.
There's no clear indication of how to proceed. Right. Is there a way that you can make like a deafened sphere around it with some to dampen the noise as we break it?
Yeah, I can do that. He says now, placing your hand along the wall, you can see that everything becomes deathly silent. In fact, it becomes so silent that Corbett can hear the ringing of his own ears.
All right. Bust the wall down.
As Corbin says this, he can't hear his voice, but it seems that the others get it. Gray is still holding the silencing. And Corbin and Corin look at the wall and begin hacking at it and smashing the wall in absolute silence. But eventually, the wall actually gives, much more easily. And as it tears away, little bits of splinters and other sorts of things are left behind as he looks and examines the break in the wall and sees that a bit of almost like dimly glowing purplish stone was resting behind this decorative sort of wall, but there was no such decoration in this type of hallway. It seems very raw.
I'm assuming we might be on the seafloor now.
And as they step in through the hallway, the sound disperses as only the steps of little splinters as they walk across some of the wood and make their way inside. On the inside, this hallway extends for quite a long while. They could see the very end, quite far off, but a very dim illumination is the only hint they have as to the length of the hallway. As they make their way down, you see that Horn is still looking about almost as though expecting something to pop out from the shadows, but nothing. Eventually, they make their way to what looks to be some indentation in the wall here, on their left and their right side, and they see a couple of almost stands or displays. Inside of a little glass jar, about no bigger than, say, like the glass jar is about as round as, like, say, an average person, right? It's pretty big, but on the inside, something very small is contained within. The label
Can't see
under
what
it says, Null Magic Star Variant Directed Blast. On the inside rests a small little dimly glowing what looks to be like a metal pebble of some sort. About no larger than someone's thumb. It simply floats in the center, emitting this ominous purple glow.
No magic star. Do I feel like any magic being siphoned to it, or do I feel any draining?
Looking at it alone, he feels a little bit uncomfortable. That glow was eerie, almost as though it wasn't natural. He had the feeling that it was something magical, but he couldn't tell what. He'd never seen anything like it.
Rhea, do you know what this is?
I've got an idea.
That is.
It's a really destructive device, to say the least. Something akin to a bomb. He says, now looking at Korn, almost as though Korn is giving her the expectation of explaining herself. It is pretty much a bomb.
Is there any way to keep it contained or
Looks
just leave it be?
contained to me if it's stable. Although I've never seen one in person before. She kind of places her hand around the glass and kind of gently picks it up, almost as though very cautiously doing so. You see that she's trying her best to be as gentle as possible. As she picks it up, it seems to follow the glass and has a glass bottom as well. As she holds it in her hand and looks at it, kind of just looks back at the others. Well, that was kind of anticlimactic, but at least I'm not dead. The rest of us not dead as well. I don't know about you, but I don't exactly want some kind of explosive device sitting around in this facility with us. At least not without us knowing where it is.
I'd rather have something that goes boom in our possession.
I'll be honest with you, though, I don't know how to use it.
That's fine. As long as it can't be used against us, it's better than nothing.
You see, as she holds it, it actually contracts in her hand as the object in the center stays centered, but the glass jar actually becomes compressed into like a small little container around it. Well, that's convenient.
Portable size. Alright.
Well, she puts it in her pack and continues to turn around to look at the other one. The other thing on display here. This one doesn't seem to be contained in any sort of glass container. It looks like to be a rather large display this time, with multiple parts and other sorts of things, some glowing, some not, some metallic, and also some not. It looks to be almost like it's taken apart, like a diagram taken apart. At the bottom it says model, severing field unit.
Is it like a golem, like something that we fought back in Stormfrost?
No, it looks much more like some sort of small box, like a sort of activatable small box. It has some kind of button display on it, as this diagram shows on the back of the display. You see that some kind of demonstration piece is in the back. As you can see that from this box, it almost emanates from the drawing. You can see it emanates like a sort of bubble, not like a dome, but similar. And you see on it, it says on the inside, no magic / sever, and on the outside it says magic.
So no magic / sever, magic on the outside.
Yes, and then there was another diagram next to it as well, where it seems that it's just pointing to the barrier itself and says no magic / sever.
So basically, box activates on magic, and and whoever's getting his magic from sever, it turns off or goes with portable form.
Rather, the most conclusive way you could see it is it seems that the device is made to create sort of anti-magic field with severing effects as well.
Ah.
Or it can create a barrier that applies this effect and contain normal magic inside.
I go up to the box and grab it.
It's not like it seems to just be a taken apart display. It doesn't seem to be anything in usable form.
Alright, so
it's mostly just diagrams and a model.
Okay. Okay, I get it now.
Yeah, it was like you've seen those like taken apart models of machines and stuff like that. Yeah, it's like that.
Yep. Alright, so looks like they're building portable severance fields. Hopefully that doesn't mean that they've got any functional ones.
That would mean that they've got some technology of that somewhere, and they're getting it somehow, or they've had the time to research it, Corn says now looking down. Even the joint project hasn't been touching it.
Didn't Myth say something about that? Or at least when he visited
That's
that
right, he did. He said that he felt his connection with ice was sort of shot when he was down there, and that they were carrying some kind of, or they were surrounded by some kind of dome of anti-magic.
So Cambria has this technology.
They do at
So that
minimum.
means Black Phoenix probably does as well, or is
Well, what that does
or they're
is,
working separate.
he saw Eichmann Castle down there. He was the director of war, right? If he's got this kind of technology, then that means he's probably associated.
All right.
Which means that Myth is about to be in a whole lot of trouble.
That's not surprising.
Seems like his normal quota of trouble.
If he can't find trouble, he'll get himself into one. All right.
I'm
So
almost
we know
curious now.
we probably have might have possible infighting if depending on the war if the war faction decides to come hammering down here. Even though that looks to be the case.
You see that Corn's now thinking down. I wonder if Mir and the others were here. The emissary offices. I bet you they've at least found out the identities.
Maybe.
Which would be real convenient to know right about now, says turning to Gria again. I know who they are. I can tell you. As long as things aren't different.
What do you mean by that?
The emissaries. Like idiots, they all have labels over their offices to tell us who they are. With the exception of one of them, Gria says. Corn was right, I have been here before. But like I said, I'll explain the circumstances around it. Just not now. What you need to know here, though, since we don't have to go over there ourselves, is that right now, there should be a new emissary of memory. We should see Mir's name over that office. The one that's writing this report, the one that you read about Eliana, his name's Arden Theron. He's related to Mir and the others, but only by name.
Okay.
Emissary of Souls is Karasa. He's the lead Viper, or the head Viper of Pyramidian's espionage force, working for the Emperor directly.
Is that the 100-man unit I've heard about?
That's correct. They're legends. Just as you had assumed, Corn, Eichmann Castle, he's the emissary of Plains. And he's on his way to Rio. Or rather, he's probably already there. And last but not least, if you thought Myth wasn't in enough trouble, Emissary of Magic is 2 people. This is an exception. Corn Romani Arnold's the head ranger of Real and the overseer of research and development.
Well, we knew there was someone in part of this organization on each of the major locations, but the fact that they have the higher positions in all of them is unsettling.
The one you're going to find the most unsettling is the Emissary of Creation, the only one without a labeled name.
Who's that?
That's one of the only things I don't know. but I have a hunch.
If by the way you said it, I might have a similar hunch, but I don't want to believe it.
I'll have to confirm, depending on. We need to refocus. We need to refocus right now.
We push forward.
Yes, we have to push forward. You've been looking for Eliana for so long. She could be here.
Let's find out. Corbin starts moving farther down the hallway.
I just want to tell you one thing, she says, grabbing Corbin on the shoulder to turn him around.
Mm.
You need to promise me you'll keep your head.
Corbin nods at this. I will.
Okay, I trust you, she says, now letting go of him gently. As Corbin turns around, feeling a little uncomfortable with this slightly out of characteristic action that she has just taken. Although he feels as though she still does know something. But Corbin still doesn't press. And Corbin doesn't still press, and Corin seems to just let it go as well. Although Corbin can tell that she is very much uncomfortable with this anyways.
As Corbin starts moving down the hallway, he basically clenches on his sword with a tighter grip, trying to keep his thoughts straight.
And Corbin continues to brace himself as they make their way down the hall. The hollow hall keeping their footsteps echoing down the chamber, back and forth down the chamber as they continue to hear it. And eventually they make their way to this second set of indentations before the end of the hall. And they see a couple more things on display. This one seems to be different. This one is less of a display and more of a, miniature terrarium / biology display. Let's see on the left side an encased planter box with a small little, looks to be translucent sapling emitting a sort of eerie mist. But Corbin knows this mist. He's seen it before. The needles of the sapling are very distinctive to him. This is no doubt a red forest sapling of some kind.
Fantastic.
On the opposite side, you see something else too. Like a taken apart display of Deathstalker. Samples of needles and teeth and other sorts of parts, all laid out in like a, you know how like they have the skeletons with like the body parts.
Mm-hmm.
A similar thing here, and then next to it as well, like a dissected version of an egg. And facehugger, of course. All very gruesome and definitely very realistic. The others are kind of grossed out by this, but
is there any information on below it? Kind of like a explanation of experimentation or something?
there doesn't seem to be any explanation. But you can see that it. You can see that at the bottom there, it says, "Captured specimen."
Captured
and preserved.
Based on the stuff in Stormfrost, looked like they were created by this organization.
They would have said that they would have every single specimen on display, right? If that whole disaster was their fault. Torrance is looking at it now. There's no way they'd be so specific about captured if it was them, right?
Yeah. I mean, we know that they at least lived up in Rio Canal. least of some form of them. I don't know if how similar they are to.
From what we heard, Deathstalkers in real, at least from what I heard from Myth, were actually quite a problem to everyone. I can't imagine the Overseers not having huge problems without, I mean, with the Deathstalkers around. Why would they ever even want to unleash them?
Diversion. That's the only thing that comes to mind.
I can't imagine what they'd be trying to divert attention to. Either way, this, as far as we can, I mean, there's nothing that specifies that they made it. Maybe we'll find some more. Clearly we're onto somebody's trail. Maybe this place will have all the information we need. And as they continue down the hallway, becoming even more on their guard, you see that Corin stops as she comes towards the end of the hallway. Someone inside. No, there's two. One appears to be an older man. I can't make out his features from here. He's turned around. And the other is... You see, she freezes up. The other one's...
Who do you see?
The other one's Eliana. She's in a display case of some kind. She's in a like a glass container filled with something. There's all kinds of things in this room, like tools, and I don't even know what half of this stuff is.
So what's all between me and the doctor and Eliana?
It's just one big room with all sorts of devices. Just
Can you make out what is the gentleman saying anything?
no, I don't think anyone's with him. It looks to be just him. You see that Gria steps in front of Corbin now and kind of grabs his shoulders and looks at him. There's something that I need you to do, okay?
What's that? Besides rushing in there and getting Eliana out.
That's exactly what you're gonna do. Or there's gonna be a certain way we go about it. Got it?
Sorry, you can't book up. I didn't quite hear that.
Said, that's exactly what we're gonna do, and we're gonna help her. But you need to do it exactly a certain way, alright? I need you to trust us. You're gonna go in there alone first.
Wait.
And you see that Corin looks extremely upset by this. You want him to go in there by himself. Why wouldn't we help him? I want to tell you, she says. You can see that a very sort of pained look begins to cut across her face as she's trying to hold back as best as she can. I need you to trust me on this.
Corbin turns and looks at her. I'll try.
He's all yours. Just keep your head. We have a different job we need to do. But we'll be right behind you.
All right.
And we will not leave you.
Okay. Corbin nods and proceeds forward.
Gripping his sword now, as you can hear the leather held around the hilt of the blade begin to tighten as he braces himself for this moment. One he's waited for a very long time. As Corbin opens the door rather nonchalantly, he takes a step in, feeling the echoing of the stone ring in his ears louder than he's ever remembered them. The world seems to go in slow motion as he sees the back of the man and Eliana floating there, so surreal. She seems thin, weaker, far weaker than he remembered her seeing. She was always so lively, but he had never seen her in a state like this before. Almost as though she were drained of life, there were all sorts of apparatus strapped to her, tubes and other metal rods and other things like that, poking into her sides.
Noticing this, Corbin starts filling with rage, but tries to keep it down as best he can as he walks calmly forward.
As Corbin begins to take more steps in the room, you see that the man freezes up and stops as soon as the first step is taken that echoes in the room. And he slowly begins to turn around, and you see the image of a somewhat older man, at least from his features from behind, somewhat hunched over, but on his face you see is extremely youthful. As he turns around, he is almost confused. I could have sworn... He seems almost surprised, almost like you were expecting somebody else. Who let you in here?
I let myself in. I'm coming for Eliana.
He turns around and looks at Eliana. Oh, yes, I recognize your face. You were the slave boy. All those years ago. I remember seeing your face. Yes. And I suppose your significance to her is what?
Royal Guard.
No. As far as I remember, you're still just a dog, a slave to her, and the rest of the royal family. Oh, I see you've lost your colors, he says, pointing to Corbin's armor. That's a shame. Truly. Now you can quit wasting my time.
Yes.
Go home. He turns around.
Very well, I will go home once you give me Eliana.
And why would I do that?
If not, then I'll be forced to take her.
You'll be forced to take her. You see, he puts his tools down and turns around as you see that his robes almost begin to grow a little bit. You see that his hands begin sparking with something, almost like a dark sort of electricity, as you see his hands sprout what look to be like a simple beam of energy in both hands. Take her from me, you say. Show me the power of your resolve, then.
With pleasure.
Alright. Corbin's entering combat. This combat's going to be a little bit slightly different than you're used to. We're going to be adhering to most of the normal tick-type battle rules, but since it's a 1v1, it's allowed to be very much more dynamic than it normally is.
Okay, how so?
You'll see, and we'll get to it.
Okay.
Just queue your stuff up like normal, and we'll get to it. All right. Which potion are you drinking first?
Oh, the blood. Basically, that's being sense everything 120 feet and upon its weakness.
All right. As Corbin flips a small bottle from out of his pocket, he immediately pops the top off, taking a sip as he normally does before tossing the bottle aside, shattering some of the glass on the floor as the man looks at him, still waiting for his move, as a smile begins to creep across his face. And as Corbin draws his sword back, he prepares for a strike, but behind him he too is also preparing to cast. You see, in an instant, the man disappears for just a moment, appearing just in front of Corbin, grabbing him by the collar, looking upwards. "We'll go together," he says as he throws them both into the air, flinging them surprisingly upwards. And as he does so, they both suspended in midair, and Corbin can feel as though his feet were light, but also a very unusual feeling at the same time. At that, a couple of holes opened in some of in the air around him, as little bits of what looked to be like dark lightning sprout from within, slower than he would have expected, but nothing new. Corbin, make a will save, please. Corbin, upon seeing this flash of lightning, immediately outspreads his hand, as the lightning almost seems to bend around it, following him upwards and dragging him along with it with its force. As he swirls along with it, the man appears from one of the other portals as the lightning clashes, as the blade also meets Corbin. As sparks fly off of their sword, Corbin, you can make your melee accuracy. You can roll your damage.
Oh boy. Nine.
As Corbin now spinning around with the force of the blade, swinging his hand along with it, the blade follows suit as the man catches the blade with one of the energy sort of beams in his hand. Although Corbin's force comes swinging through as the man is pushed by the force of the blade, throwing him to the side, although as he swings his other arms around with the force of the momentum, he catches Corbin in the back as well. This is not physical or magic damage, this is void damage.
So true damage?
No, it's void damage, so you take 91 to magic and physical. It's not reduced by resistance.
Do I do damage reduction or anything?
No, it has no damage reduction.
Okay.
Yeah.
-1 to my armor and magic resist.
But you won't get armor or magic broken once it's gone. I mean, you'll lose the saves and stuff, extra stuff like that, but you won't lose. You won't get stunned or anything.
Okay.
All right.
That does damage, so I was 160 blood less.
Corbin, make a fortitude save as well.
Okay.
When does Igni go off?
Proc 3.
Okay. Fill that in for me when you're done.
Yeah. Fortitude is 2. 56.
All right. Corbin can feel the heat of the blade as it pushes into his back, but instead of simply succumbing to it, he pushes himself forward, reeling to the next sort of blackened lightning, pushing them upwards even farther, before the man disappears after the strike, appearing above him again, this time with another, coming from another portal in lightning. Right. Corbin, you have, you can have your melee or your igni
Can't
of
do
this
both.
tick. You can pick one of them to go off first, because the actions are happening at more or less the same time.
Igni will go first.
Alright? You can go ahead and roll your accuracy.
It's a.
Oh yeah, it's not accuracy, sorry, yeah, my bad.
It's fine. It's his weakness, whatever it is.
Yep. As far as Corbin can tell, it seems that his weakness is actually not any particular element or physical, but the inverse of whatever he seems to be using. And Corbin doesn't know it exactly off the top of his head, but he has seen it before. That night when he saw Alcaria fighting that large creature, it felt like the same kind of energy as then. But now, to think that he'd be using himself against the foe that he had waited for so long, it was satisfying to feel that powerful. As from behind his back, he presses his palm into the man before he can react in time, pressing him upwards as he is blasted upwards as well. Swinging his legs up, he also tries to make a sort of sneaky attack against Corbin. Hit, yes?
Yes.
Alright. He does so, swinging his legs around, kicking Corbin with a little bit more force and dragging him upwards as well. Same damage type.
Good at math, but I didn't calculate it. Combine all this shit.
No. Like, just click on yourself. Click the bubble that you're trying to reduce.
No,
And just click.
no, that's not that. It's more for bloodlust.
Oh. Just added. Just do addition in roll 20.
Yeah, I know. I know Voltron does that. I'm moving over to inventory sheets. Wait.
Yeah, just do it like that, you know?
Yeah, no, I get that. Melee attack.
That's correct.
Is that crit range? Yep, that is.
Go ahead and roll.
You want me to roll quick confirm?
Kid confirm, yes.
$50.
You go roll your crit. Corbin's head kicking back from the actual kick itself, as you see that he does not hesitate to immediately grab the man's foot just as it's about to leave his head, before dragging him downwards with the full strength, kicking the man in the gut himself, and before turning around in a 360 spinning attack and smacking the man with the flat of the blade directly on the top of the head, but doesn't stop there. He uses the rest of the force of the falling downwards to press the man. Grunting as he does so, Corbin, pressing all of his strength into him, shoves him straight back down to the ground with full momentum as he crashes into the floor, sliding across. And Corbin landing directly across from him as the man regains his composure, brushing a little bit of blood away from his mouth. Seems she saw something in you, not just as some little whimsical princess. She picked a dedicated one. Should have factored this into my calculations. I know better than to underestimate you now. I'm not like a fool like the others. You see, immediately as he does this, the blades disappear for just a second as he places his hands together, drawing them upwards as the little sparks of electricity darken the room. You see from around him small little portals that start to appear and seem to swirl around him, 3 of them in particular. And the blades reappear in his hands as he now points them both at Corbin. Okay. Moving to Tick 4, so it's going to be your third melee going off here, right?
Yep, now I'm gonna activate his ass. Spit. The lightning sword.
Yep, go ahead.
So I'm gonna drop it right here.
Okay.
Inside, I mean, inside all 3 of his teleportation.
It's going to be, say again?
I'm assuming it's inside all the 3 teleports or swords flying around him.
No, he has 2 the energy blades in his hands, but he's got 3 little darkened sort of black spheres floating around you.
They're all around me. Okay. Alright. Let's activate the normal melee attack. S is S, not the regular melee.
I'm waving that once. But
Basically, it is S.
yes,
The sword that basically
Yeah.
comes at him from behind doesn't do anything.
don't worry. As Corbin takes the blade and in preparation to throw it, the man almost actually seems to stand there, not actually dodging out of the way, with a slight smirk. But thinking that Corbin will charge in, he does no such thing, flinging the blade at him, missing him even. Some sort of thin glass veil shatters just in front of him as you see the smile fades from his face, not expecting this. As the blade rests behind him, he pays it no mind. He raises his hand one more time as you see that the orbs swirling around Corbin solidify into what look like red beams, just as his weapons are in his hands. They simply float there, watching him, but they look like they are pointed at him. Alright. As 3 more darkened orbs also appear behind them, following Corbin as well, just as they did before. He's gonna step in for an attack now.
It's
Brandishing some of his blades, he begins spinning about as he swings both of the blades directly in front of Corbin, clipping him and some of his armor as it sees some of it burns off and shears onto the ground as it simply sizzles there just on the floor, just in front of him. He seems to be rearing for yet another attack. Okay, so that was just the Assaz, right, you said?
yeah. Now
Okay.
use regular melee.
Yep, go for it.
So take that damage.
You can go ahead and roll that.
So, playing catch up.
As the man begins to make his strikes, Corbin does the same, not being pressured at all by his blades as Corbin drags the blade across the ground, sparking it before swinging it upwards into him with some force. As it smacks him in the side, you see that he recoils somewhat, but uses the momentum to make yet another series of strikes against Corbin with the energy blades.
Right. Max bloodlust, so resolve goes up 1. They hit.
Alright. Alright, well, are you taking care of that right now? Taking care of this too?
Yeah, 1 second. 17. Alright.
As Corbin now takes these series of hits, he can feel his armor beginning to warm quite a bit. As the man seems to be almost leading him away from something as he remembers that the energy beam's sitting just behind him, but it happens just a little bit too late. Corbin makes some 3 reflex saves.
Oh, flip. One thing I'm not good at.
The Corbin not reacting in time, as the energy beams seem to pass directly through him with such sheer force he can feel the burning sensation all throughout his body. As he's struck with a series of them again, he sees that the next set of orbs have solidified into these beams again, but he does notice something as he recoils from some of the heat. He notices that the beams don't actually seem to be following him, but rather where he just was.
Okay. So I'll make a side sweep and move over 10 feet.
Right. Yeah, go ahead and do the numbers and then get to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So void damage.
Yep, still void damage.
Okay. Alright. Hunter and Honor are both at 10. Actually 11. That way, that last one. Okay. Stack goes up 1. Resolves up 2.
Okay.
Okay.
Now Corbin now bracing himself as he was bending down, but not for anybody. As he stands back up, bracing himself, swinging the blade around in a wide sweep as he takes a sidestep as he does. Go ahead and roll accuracy. Go ahead and roll your damage.
And he has to do this displacement check.
Displacement, okay.
Yeah, displacement check or he gets knocked down. Fails.
All right. Corbin taking this wide step to the right, or to his right, as he swings the blade, smacking the man with the force of it. But this time, as Corbin brings a little bit of extra oomph into it, the man gets sent back and lands directly on his back. The blades are still protruding from his hand. 3 more black orbs appear around Corbin, but they don't seem to have solidified yet. He's knocked down.
Alright. Then move up and...
Alright, next team.
Sorry.
You didn't cue anything.
Yeah, I'm queuing him now. I'm just... Like I said, I've been playing catch up.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Right now, I'm more concerned with you just simply looking at your abilities and telling me what it is that you want to use. This is, like I said, a 1v1. It's a little less strict.
Yeah. Five. Cue a bard here. Hold off on that, because I might be activating one of my ultimates. Depending on what happens next. Right. Okay, step forward. Attack him while he's down.
Okay. Corbin seizing the moment for a quick advance as you see that some of the beams begin to solidify, as the ones just off to his left that he noticed immediately fires the beams into the ground, leaving a searing hole in some of the stone. Now as you see that these beams are just hovering above him, he can still feel their warmth on his back. Okay, go ahead and roll your accuracy.
Assuming that hits.
Yep, go ahead and roll damage. Corbin seizing the moment once again as he grabs his blade, cutting across the man directly, cutting through some of his armor as he sees a little bit of blood begins to flow from it. You see, as he presses his arm just against his wound, he scrambles backwards and away from Corbin and regaining some of his posture just not too far away. As Corbin gets a satisfying lick of blood as the blood drips just off of his blade and onto the ground, making a very distinct patter sound that echoes through the room. And he points his blade now with one hand at the man, who's trying his best to stand his ground. Alright. Going with Ard.
Mm.
It's all yours.
Yeah, blast him and then move. So, he has to do a displacement check. Or get knocked down again.
Okay.
There's no accuracy to it, it's just straight damage.
Is that the 67?
Yeah, that's damage, and now he needs to displacement check. Fails. Knocks down again.
And as soon as the man is trying to struggle back to his feet, gaining his feet for just a moment before Corbin blasts the man, sending him onto his back once again, as you can hear the man strike onto the ground with a grunt of pain.
And we move forward out of the area where the orbs are targeting.
And just as Corbin does so, the beams fire, sending a hole through where he just would have been. And see, as the man now is trying his best to get back up. Okay. You want to cue something else?
Yeah. Activate Revenant Authority.
Okay. That's the ultimate, right? When you turn into...
Yeah, the first one.
Ooh.
No, that's Dire Transformation.
Oh, no,
Revenant Authority
that's right. You're trying to...
make him stay on the ground.
Yeah, gotcha.
Like a little bitch he is.
Alright. Walk me through what you want to do to him here. Alright. Actions are all yours. You tell me what you want to do.
So basically, since he's always on the ground, Revenant Authority activates. It doesn't activate automatically, but basically, since he's always on the ground, he basically stays on the ground and stunned. So basically, I'll read it for you just so you. Revenant Authority calls the attention from all enemies around him, gaining a buff based on how many enemies are within 50 feet, so one. This also plays a reward. All enemies are knocked down to a kneeling position on initial cast with displacement of, and deals 1d6 class damage without weakness for every enemy within 50 feet of Revenant in this ward, gain plus 1 DR for focusing weaknesses.
Okay, yeah, it's just follow-up knockdown is what it is, pretty much.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Follow it now, but since I have an advanced version of it, since levels, I can now activate Step Guillotine on repeat.
Gotcha. And so as the man is trying to struggle to his feet, Corbin jabs the blade into the ground, rumbling the whole building as he can feel the forces. Some of the rocks begin to fall from some of the columns. And striking along the ground, the man also immediately is forced downwards as he presses his hand onto the ground in front of him, trying his best not to faceplant, but at the same time, Corbin finds the satisfaction watching the man kneel before him, looking up in anger. Alright. He's not getting up this tick now.
Alright. Step Guillotine.
Yep, Step Guillotine's yours.
Oh boy, here comes the damage, Andy. I'm not sure I'm doing correct. Yes. Right. So 10%, there's an additional 10%. Oh, I want the hits. So let's go accuracy first. Honor is at 16. I'm talking about 16. What's that? That hits.
Oh yeah, it hits. He's knocked down. That hits.
Yeah, I was making sure.
Go ahead.
I don't know of anything. Do I want any funny businesses? Plus 10% of missing health. Oh boy. Oh boy. Let's find a number. Down.
And Corbin stepping forward now, pulling the blade from out of the ground, leaving a very wide indentation from where his blade had struck. He steps forward now, bringing the full force of the blade straight down onto the man's back as it lays him flat onto the ground. With a crushing blow, the man grunts as he is smashed into the floor, leaving a very small crater. But you see that he begins to actually push the blade up from Corbin with surprising strength. You see the man disappears from the blade for a second, backing up, but not before someone pops out from the darkness, pushing him straight back into Corbin. Oh no.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no.
Oh no.
No.
As he backsteps, Corin actually comes forward and jabs the blade directly through the man, and pushing him forward with her foot straight back into Corbin. As Corbin catches him by the shoulder just in front of him, with a small smile as the man looks up at him. And see that Corin is almost staring intently at Corbin as he looks over to the side and sees that Gria is messing with one of the machines right by Eliana.
Try to keep his attention on me so he doesn't know it's Gria. Was that all you got? This is too easy.
You see that it's actually an angry smirk appears on his face for just a second as as a little bit of blood is dripping down from the side of his head. Gladly show you what I have. And just as that, the man Corbin tries to grip the man, but he disappears from within his grasp. Appearing on the side now, you see that Corin is actually blindsided by something. You see that she is swept off of her feet and dragged off to the side here for a moment. And Corbin can feel something pushing him back. Make a displacement save. And even if Corbin feels this pressure, he still stands his ground, holding firmly. Appearing in front of him, he can see that the man stands in his path with a thin veil held just in front of him between him and Corin, as you see a duplicate of himself is actually holding Corin off to the side by some sort of electrical chains, as you see that she is straining under the pressure and her body is as tensed up as can be. She doesn't seem to be able to move as her weapon is almost as though she's being electrocuted. She can't seem to move. She's entirely bound as you see that Arden is actually looking over at Corbin and the copy of himself, simply holding her there, almost as though he were slowly choking her life away. Alright, Corbin.
Right. I'm gonna first move over to try and get in front of him before he is at his procs.
Alright. Make a will save. Oh, okay. And Corbin seeing the thin veil and disregarding it anyways, as he smashes through it entirely, shattering it like a thin veil of glass, as the man, much to his shock, is shoved to the side as Corbin grabs him, but instead of returning to the sword himself, Corbin unleashes it for just a moment as the copy is flung along straight back with the sad, all the way onto the ground. And Corbin now nothing left between him and Corin as he tries to make his way over there quickly, but he can still see it. He's choking her life away. Gria is still busy back at what looks to be some sort of control console of some kind. She's still messing with some of the tubes. She's not turning around. Alright, Corbin.
I'm gonna load a heavy hook.
Throwing it at him?
Yep.
Range?
It's over range of 60, so it's in range.
Okay. Roll your accuracy.
Yep.
And Corbin now turning his attention away from the downed clone as he throws the hook. And just as he does, you see that another copy just comes flying into the way and gets dragged by the hook directly over to Corbin. And you see that Arden is still over there, not paying attention to Corbin now as he continues to choke through Corin. But this man is flung to the side now. You still have some movement.
As I basically ripped the heavy hook away with the clone and basically said, "Let her go!"
And flinging the clone to the side as he gets smashed against one of the sharper ends of the rocks, dissipating into a wisp of blacky mist and smoke. Corbin cries out to the man to cease, but he pays him no attention, still choking her away. Okay. Let's tick. There's been enough of a lapse that you can have your melee cooldowns back.
Yeah. This is the first one.
Yep, it's all yours. Got your movement and everything else.
Move range and attack attacker, Arden.
Okay. Go ahead. Roll your damage.
That would have been too much. I almost did 600 damage. Oh my god.
I want you to make a will save and a fortitude save for me.
Sure. Alright, fortitude first. Keep it 5 since 2. And here's Will. Actually, okay.
Corbin stepping over to the man now who's still floating above the ground, holding Corin by her neck or whatever it is, just simply chaining her there into the air by this dark electrical force. Corbin steps forward now, striking the man's hands, and you see that the chains are weakened. You see that Corin begins to slowly fall to the ground before she catches her feet, stepping upwards now, smacking the man correctly across the chin and directly into Corbin, who catches the man with his blade, making an attack of opportunity. You'll roll your damage.
Oh, I don't know if that.
Roll your damage.
Okay.
Corbin catching him with his blade, and see that the man is shoved away. That is, before he is blindsided by a clone. Make a reflex.
My one weakness.
As both Corin and Corbin are caught up in this. Corin steps just out of the way, but is still caught with just the edges of it. You can see that some of her skin begins to burn somewhat as she backs up, wincing from some of the pain. Corbin too backsteps, but he is caught by the full force of it, as he is struck in the back and shoved to the side with extreme strength. Make a displacement save as well. Okay. And Corbin catches his balance, turning around just barely, as he sees this blackened orb of the nothingness, some kind of abyss. As he sees it, he can't see through it, but on the other side he could see Corin's features just a little bit, sticking out from one of the sides. She seems to have caught her balance, with a little bit of blood. You can tell that she's in danger. And just as this happens, the man now protruding this orb as it just floats there in the middle of the room. The two twins, or sort of two clones, come together, joining into one as you see that he raises his hands up into the air as the orb disappears, as the entire room is enveloped in darkness, as the two huddle together rather quickly. He can see from all around him tiny little black orbs appearing at the edge of this blackened dome of nothingness. As they stand in this abyss, the entire dome gets lit up by little tiny red dots that he recognizes as the little lasers pointed at them. There must have been hundreds, thousands, in fact. You can hear the man begin to laugh, a maniacal laugh, as he disappears from this. The lasers are fixated on them.
Is Corin next to me, or?
Yeah, she's right next to you, blade raised, back to back.
Corin, step back.
Where exactly am I going to step back to? Says back, pressed to Corbin's. I'm not exactly the running type either. If we're going to make it out of this, we're going to make it out of this together.
I understand that, but step back away from me.
I don't think so. I think you need my help too. Besides, I'm not a little kid anymore, she says, looking over her shoulder.
I understand that, but right now, I can do something I haven't done before. Dire transformation.
Okay. Go ahead. We're going to change. Makes you large, right?
Yep.
We're going to go with this for now.
Is it large? No, stay with Corbin talking.
For now, yes.
Okay.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
I see as Corin steps forward a little bit, turning around to see that Corbin begins to peel away as his skin is beginning to sort of froth and disappear as it flakes off. But he can see but something else begins to appear. Shiny obsidian scales begin to sprout forth from where his skin once lay. Wings begin to grow from his back, and claws, sharper than knives and swords, and longer than them as well. As he holds himself upwards, a bit of the floor below him begins to compress as his form takes up an immense amount of energy. He looks around now, seeing the lasers in a completely different light. And Corin once again presses her back against his, still back to back. They see the lasers laid out all around them. Okay. And as some of the lasers begin to pour forth, you see that Corin is trying her best to bat some of them away. And she's doing so successfully with blinding speed, but Corbin has his own approach. How would you like to deal with these lasers coming at both of you?
Oh boy. Sheer force of fire breath, my friend.
Alright. Anything else you also want to do?
Basically well, I was thinking is kind of do like a wide sweep, my fire breath all around. Should be disoriented, but at the same time, basically lash out with my claws.
Okay. Make some fortitude and wills then. Whichever combination that you'd like, up to 6.
The 6 of each, or?
Up any combination you'd like, up to 6.
Okay. Might as well go for the highest one, so.
As the two are pressed back to back, moving rather quickly as Corin is smacking some of these lasers away, dipping and dodging in between them, stepping in between Corbin's larger figure now, batting some away that even he did not see. But as Corbin does the same, as he presses his arms around, smacking some lasers away and absorbing the sheer force of them all, along with emitting a powerful acid breath as some of them just evaporate before even reaching the two. And the lasers continue to pour forth as though there were no end to them. As their speed continues to pick up, Corin and Corbin continue to smack them away. Again and again, as it goes on what feels like an eternity, before finally, in a bright flash of light, it all ends. And as Corin is behind Corbin now, he can see her now, exhausted. And just as he is about to stand back up, you see that she is immediately struck across the face, flinging her sliding across the back of the way. And as Corbin is about to retaliate, you see that the beam is directly next to Corbin's head, as Corbin is trying to recover his breath. Still in his dragon form, though, the man just rests there holding his blade just next to his head. As he draws it back to swing, Corin steps forward from blinding speed as it is about to strike him, pressing the blade away, shoving it back behind him and spinning the man around. Corbin, he's got a moment of weakness. What would you like to do? His back is turned to you while he's spinning.
Stab him with claws and sword, straight in the back. Stab guillotine.
Alright.
As
Corbin drags his claws forward, smacking the man directly in the back with the sheer force of his fist, it pushes him somewhat before he grabs his leg, dragging him into the ground and smashing him into the floor, leaving another crater, but he recoils from the force of the actual throw, pushing him up off of the ground again. You see as Corin comes flying in, smacking him in the back with the blade and shoving him off into the air as the man floats backwards, flipping multiple times before slowly coming to a sort of hovering rest just above the two, about 20 feet above the ground. You see now that Corin has pressed her hand onto Corbin's back, and can feel a little bit of that dragon's breath welling up within him.
Corbin unleashes full mind fury onto the floating Arden at full blast.
As the man hovers there, trying his best to recover, he looks up just in time to see this powerful beam of breath come flying directly at him, pushing straight through him with the power of that energy. Pushing back as Corin begins cheering Corbin on, as the beam pushes the man all the way into the ceiling and into the stone, crushing some of it as the stone crumbles around him as he tumbles to the floor with a satisfying crunch as he lands directly on his face. He's stunned at the moment. He's stunned at the moment, just on the ground. He seems barely able to pick himself up.
I basically just move all the way over him, grab him, lift him up, and I say, anything else?
And the man tries his best to calm himself down as you see that his head is almost spinning from the force of all this strike. And as Corbin holds him up by his neck, the man is very weakly trying to struggle. The energy beams in his hands have faded into just nothing but small little bits of black static. And you see that Corbin looks over to the side to see that Gria is also still messing with the machine, but something else, she's turning around with a look on her face almost like horror. Everything is in slow mode. And Corbin holds the man. He feels the satisfaction of crushing the man in between his hands would simply not be enough. He wants more than just that. What would you like to do?
Degree. Do we need him for anything?
And you see that Gria's look of relief on her face as Corin is actually also clutching Corbin, almost as though trying to pull him back. He felt as though she was actually cheering him on, but something else made him feel different. He begins to come to his senses a little bit more, as the voice in him begins to calm down. The draconic voice begins to fade and cease as he returns to his normal self. Still holding the man up by his neck, however, weakly struggling, he begins to cough and sputter. But it's almost as though he were smiling. Go on, slave. You don't need their permission. Go on. Do it.
I bring him up to my right to where my eyes are, and I say, "You would like that, wouldn't you?" No, it's not gonna be that easy for you. And basically knock him out.
As Corbin chokes a little bit harder, the man still struggling from between his fingers. He eventually stops, but Corbin can still feel his pulse and lets go just before he does the final deed. As the man falls to the ground, he rests there, wheezing somewhat faintly and coughing occasionally. I'm glad you could keep your head, she said.
Not easy in this form.
Proud of you, she says, Agria now, looking at Corbin, and you can see that very thin veil of what looks to be her attempting to hold back tears as she embraces him in a strong and powerful hug.
Ow.
You see that Corbin winces from some of the pain as Corin joins in from behind as well. Just glad we finally made it this far. You still have one more thing to do, Gria says, letting go of him now, pointing to Eliana. This was the last thing. The thing I couldn't tell you, and this was a decision you had to make on your own. I'm glad you didn't kill him. There was more than one factor to it. I'll tell you the story soon. First things first. There's not a whole lot of choices on the ways to save Eliana, and we don't have much time. I've managed to remove some of the devices that would alter her memory any further. As far as I can tell, there's barely much left of her. Only the most important memories to her will be left. Whether or not she'll wake up again, we'll have to just see. But here's the thing. You either have to leave this man alive and walk away, or you'll have to take the sacrifice for Eliana. This man was prepping her to be the next emissary, and he was this close. We arrived in time. Just barely. But we don't have enough time to make any other decisions except the one in your mind right now. Will you step in and take that over and free her of this? Or will you just...
What's the point of it being the next... What's being this emissary mean in title for me?
You might be bound by an anger you might not be able to control, and with powers that you maybe wish you didn't have. You won't be fully you. But what of what I've seen so far, there's more in you there than I have ever seen. And I think if it's for Eliana, I think you can do it. But like I said, this decision is yours and yours alone. The after effects I can't really say. You just have to find out.
I know if we leave him alive, he'll probably keep going after Eliana. I'll swap places with her.
It's all prepped and ready to go.
Corbin moves forward.
Now as he steps forward up the thin steps to Eliana, as she simply floats there, as thin as she ever was before, but even thinner now as she's become somewhat skinny. He notices her features. She hasn't grown any older, not even a single day, but yet he can still tell how weak she is. There was a doubt in his mind. What will I become? What will happen to me? But he dismisses those thoughts. As he sees Eliana there, he has come all this way not to hesitate. He swore he would protect her. And more importantly than that, he will. He steps up now, gently lifting her off of this sort of floating platform. She feels so light in his arms. As though the scene wasn't real, he steps down. As Gria has pulled out a sort of cloth from her bag and ready to accept her, Corbin gently hands her over to Gria, who wraps her up. Just remember, he says, looking at Corbin now, there's no turning back. There's no second chances.
Only moving forward. Let's do this.
You see as Gria gently lays Eliana on the ground, Corin tends to her as Gria moves over to some of the apparatus. Tell me when you're ready. As Corbin begins to float there, he feels somewhat vulnerable and a little bit alone. He wondered how she must have felt all this time, being plagued by nothing but fake memories, the hope that someone would come and save her. And no one did for so long. He shakes that thought out of his mind. He stares up at the light above him, blinding now as he stares up at it. This was the resolve he had always set himself out to do, to take care of. This was always his duty from the beginning. There's no fear here. And Corbin gives the signal, and Gria turns slowly and pulls the latch.